Hey, how are you? Hopefully you're doing pretty good. We got tornado warnings out here in Denver at the moment, which is friggin' wild. I'm getting ready to go to an open mic night with my sweet savage. And I wanted to try and bang out a royal rant before hitting the road, as the storm's looking something fierce. And yeah, talking about this Eve echoes and writing and silly video game stuff helps me feel better. It's been a really good day, though. I spent a lot of time talking to the missus. Um, so, for today's Royal Rant, I kind of wanted to talk about, like, why I love Eve Echoes specifically. And not, like, the game feature stuff, but the stuff from me. The reason why I think it clicks on my end. I'm really into logistics. Like, moving things around, having them in position for. Maybe that's not accurate. I don't know. So, when I was a little kid, not a little kid, a high schooler, I was in junior ROTC, which is like Reserve Officer Training Corps, military wannabes learning to do military things, which is a lot of marching, rifle drill. I was part of the honor guard, so burying people, but not actually burying them, folding flags for veterans, and presenting them to the next of kin, things like that. Anyway, so I wanted to be a pilot. Mainly because, like, one half of my family was really into sports, and the other half was really into theater. And I didn't want to do anything that either half um, was into. And flying and aviation seemed like a good fit. So I went through JROTC, did the Air Force thing pretty hardcore all through high school. A whole bunch of other adventures, Golden Boy State, which sounds really stupid, but it was a lot of fun. Like junior politics, silliness. Um, Academic decathlon, which was a lot of fun. And like they had a focus on China when I was doing it, so reading the Good Earth and learning a lot about Chinese history, and it's surprising how often that stuff comes up through over the years. But from there, I went to the Air Force Academy, and like that was a crazy institution, more institution than school. Um, Drier than BYU. The only bar on the base is Hap's Place, and all they serve is beer and cider, or at least they used to. I don't know if they still do, but all iron and glass. That's the academy. And then I went to pilot school, pilot training, and I washed out. And there's a bunch of reasons why I washed out. Most of them are personal. A lot of them is a lack of preparation, very poor preparation. But from there, I went into tech. I was a cyberspace operations officer. So, like, computers, but not like in any cool way. Basic computer maintenance, IT work, that sort of thing. Mostly project management. I love project management. I like the idea of processes and workflows and like this follows that. This is dependent on this. You need this to do that. I think that's why industry agrees with me so well in Eve Echoes, even though there's no demand for it. It still feels satisfying to build things. And it's not actually like building the things, but pressing the button to get the things cooking. Interestingly enough, I love cooking too for a lot of the same reasons. I like setting things in motion and then waiting for them to come to fruition. Writing stories does that. Telling stories does that. Um, the fewer words, the greater the emotion. Um, the use of negative space is something that is really interesting. And Eve Echoes and Eve just in general, but like any of those space sim games are like, oh, there's a lot of negative space. Elite Dangerous is similar in that regard. No Man's Sky. A lot of them try and like, pack in action. Elite doesn't in a lot of ways. It's got the whole road trip through space thing going on, and Eve kind of has a similar thing going on too, especially out in Null, where like war is boring until it isn't. And that's accurate for a lot of like transportation type puzzles or work or, you know, fun. So yeah, I'm a failed pilot who likes computers and project management, which makes Eve Echoes just hit me right in the feels. Um, Strangely enough, though, like I don't think there's a lot of other folks who play it for the same reasons I do. I think most folks who play it are more concerned with making numbers get bigger and like racing to battleships, which is interesting because there's a lot of overlap, or at least there's a lot of thematic overlap between the gameplay in Eve Echoes and the gameplay in, for example, World of Warships or Eve Online. Obviously, Eve Online, but I think most of the folks who are committed to that are pretty hardcore committed. They ain't moving, ain't looking to start fresh, even though I think Echoes is the better war game. I think there's a lot of stuff NetEase could do to individuate and differentiate it from Eve Online, but they're not really pursuing that, it seems. They seem more focused on making the upper limit a lot higher and like providing gradation and graduation between purchased accounts, which like that hollows out the program itself. I understand the need to account for scope creep and to pull back resources where they're not being expended. But the loss of destroyer nanocores, for example, like really hurts. I've got a tungsten age thrasher that I use. I finally found a core for it, but I was looking for cores for destroyers just in general, Tal Wars, thrashers, those two in particular. But other than the Synesis, like I'm really limited on the options available. And with the whole recruit and mercenary, like those cores getting pulled from the game, like they're still in there. I still have mine, mostly for Bellicose, which I can't really fly as an alpha. Like you can, but you miss out on a lot of the bonuses. It's just a nice filler cruiser. I want to create a lot more thrashers. Go wide strategy instead of a go narrow strategy like most folks seem to aim for. They specialize and over specialize in my estimation. But a lot of the ways, a lot of how I play the game comes from how I led, how I operated within the Air Force. Like I really liked checking in with folks and seeing how they were doing professionally, and then like real world side, how their families were doing, how their kids were getting on, and how like their hobbies were coming along. There were a lot of different ones, and I still remember most of my troops, what they had in place, because that was sort of key to their identity for me. I had to individuate them to make them easier to remember. And one of my favorite questions was, out of curiosity, what do you do for fun? Which, like, useful tool, but also not genuinely curious. So it doesn't actually pull much more than the surface level um, image of an individual. I wonder if that's why, like, I'm such a fan of the different locations within Eve Echoes. They have their own characteristics and feels for operations out there. So, for example, there's a compressed space right outside Istidard, the Freelands ITC at the moment. And I keep dipping in there and nibbling with Venture 3. Um, and I'm bopping around in my little Thrasher 2, looking in other condensed spaces, nihilist dead spaces, looking for other miners and people to pick on here and there. I know there's not going to be any of them, but it's nice to keep the fantasy up. It's just, I think it's poor signaling more than anything else. There's a lot of catering to the whales that occurs within Eve Echoes. And I want there to be more content that people create for the smaller ships just as a matter of course. Like, I had this idea for a Fight Club kind of thing, Big Billy's Barbecue, um, where basically I would try and get fleets together and go down the Savage Road and strip shields and armor off of different locations along the road itself, and just like same day every week, or just set up and share the target with folks and have them go whenever they want, and just like raise hell, try and clear out this space, and have it be, you know, not necessarily a corporation versus a corporation or like an in group, but like a witch hunt. Like anybody should be attacking this. Come all, bring all comers. Just moving along the road, just moving along the space, being a menace. But folks don't really want to do that because, like, they would rather be told what to do than go do the thing. And I'm the same way in so many ways. Like, I would very much like an easy job. Like work. But this is probably the worst market since they started recording how bad or how good markets could be. Like, certainly not as bad as the Great Depression because of a lot of the social safety nets that were put in place after the Great Depression. But, whoo boy, it's ugly out there. And, like, here's this game where I feel like I can be productive. I can build things, make things for other folks to use, and sell them at a price that's not necessarily profitable, but is good for converting materials into liquidity. Like, selling below market price, resting bitch price, is really good for increasing the velocity of money, which means I've got a lot more, like, purchasing power than folks who build up slowly over time and, what's it called? HODL. Hold on, don't lose. Hold on, don't lose is a neat strategy. It's a ratchet technique, but that only works, like, if there's value in the asset you're holding on to. When ultimately the asset becomes moves far enough up the Pareto distribution that it's no longer useful for other folks. For example, like, I don't really care about ISK so much as the minerals and the materials, the planetary materials especially. The ISK is only useful for planetary materials and then, like, hitting the go button on whatever project I'm cooking. And, like, not having deadlines for those builds, like, that's super rewarding too. It's a relief compared to, Milcon and data center setups and project management timelines and, I don't know, budgeting, spreadsheets, which, like, those are fun in their own right. I love trying to find wiggle room and space and, like, filling in holes on lists of assets together and put together. Like, I love building things within the game. But I don't know how much of that is the game and how much of that is just, like, an interest in that sort of style of play. If I had access to Factorio, would I like it more than Eve Echoes? I think the main reason I enjoy it is because it's mobile. It's always at hand, and it's a great way to, like, pretend that I'm disengaging from the internet. Because, like, mining doesn't take nearly as much attention as anything else. It can take as much or as little attention as you desire, even as an alpha. And building is just setting things cooking in the background. Like, it's very passive. But the active play, taking a Thrasher 2 into a T7 rat space or T7 anomaly, and just trying to survive. Like, that's pretty fun, intense. Or going into hostile territory and seeing if you can get people to chase you. Really fun, tense. Exploring, though it really pisses me off that the Thrasher 2 only has 2 mid slots. Doesn't make a lick of sense. The modified Thrasher has 3. Why doesn't the Thrasher 2? Is it because, like, it's... Anyway. Frigates get all the love, man. Even nanocore wise, it's surprising how much easier it is to stat out one of them puppies. I wish they did more weird nanocores. Like, I would love to have destroyer mining nanocores, which is weird. Because, like, most folks would rather have that on the optimal ship for it, the Venture or one of those strip miners, a stripper, a retriever, coveter, whatever. It makes the most sense to try and stack within a maximalizing, specializing, hyperfixation focused design. Unfortunately, that devolves into a straight money check, a wallet check after a certain point. And there's folks out there who play around that, who do really good with the material they have. Rambo is amazing at that. Gromeyer is really good at that. Um, Bradrick and a lot of the other folks out there, like who, you know, are active participants in the social scene. But within the game, like you don't often see weird ships in the wild. You don't. I did run into a battleship mining, which like more power to you, bud. But that's a different level of silly. Whereas like I'm viewing the game from um, a tactical appreciation of military history and a deep love of like genre fiction, like the Honor Harrington series or the Lost Fleet. Oh man, or yeah, whether it's Belters out in the Expanse or Star Trek, which I'm not very familiar with Star Trek. Deep Space Nine is the only like real jaunt I've had into any of those, except for the movie where they have to go find the whale. That was my grandpa's favorite. And a lot of like, it's strange. A lot of the things that I learned washing out of pilot training apply to flying stupid little spaceships around, especially if they're small. Because a lot of naval aviation, or not naval aviation, excuse me, a lot of naval techniques transferred into aviation and have now transferred back over into this sort of space navy nonsense. And that exists within space operations as well. Like whether it's orbital mechanics and reference points around the Earth itself, um, the complicated math surrounding space astronautical engineering. Like, most of that has roots within navigating the sea because it required a familiarity with the stars before they had any sort of like way of looking down or pre-established routes. Oh, good to go. Almost? Okay. I'll wind down. It's been a good rant. Um, but yeah, I think I bring a lot of me to the game and not a lot of the game out, which is probably why I don't know what I'm doing. But I know I seem to have fun while I do it. So hopefully you're having a good day. And hopefully this video finds you well. Thanks.